For 30 years, the world operated on a single seductive promise that if we connected every economy, trade would make conflict obsolete and goods would only get cheaper. We built a machine designed for perfect efficiency. But in the last 24 months, that machine hasn't just stalled, it has fundamentally broken. We are witnessing the end of the era of just-in-time and the violent birth of the era of just-in-case. This isn't a temporary supply chain hiccup. It is a structural dismantling of the global order. The intrigue lies not in the chaos we see on the news, but in the silence of the boardrooms making the decisions. The defining economic philosophy of the last half-century, globalization, was based on trust. You trust that a factory 5,000 miles away will deliver your microchips on Tuesday. You trust that shipping lanes will remain open. You trust that borders will remain porous. That trust has evaporated. Nations are no longer prioritizing efficiency. They are prioritizing security. We are moving from a world of cooperation to a world of fortification. The psychological shift here is profound. It is a collective move from optimism to paranoia. Here is the nudge that explains the tension. We are seeing the rapid rise of reshoring and friendshoring. This sounds like dry economic jargon, but it represents the most significant capital reallocation in history. Trillions of dollars are being pulled out of hostile or unstable markets and poured into domestic infrastructure or allied nations. It is an efficiency recession. When you stop buying from the cheapest source and start buying from the safest source, the price of everything, from your refrigerator to your car, adjusts permanently upward. The era of deflationary growth is over. For the average household, this connects directly to the concept of purchasing power. The volatility you feel in the grocery store isn't just inflation, it's the cost of the world deglobalizing. You are paying a premium for national security hidden in the price of your goods. The global assembly line is being broken into regional blocks, and the friction of that breakage generates heat. That heat is what you feel in your wallet. But while we worry about the cost of goods, a far more dangerous currency is being weaponized behind the scenes. And this next move doesn't just change what you buy, it changes who is allowed to buy it. If the first shift was about where goods are made, the second shift is about who is allowed to have the technology to make them. We have entered a period of technological apartheid. For decades, technology was viewed as a neutral tide that lifted all boats. That view is dead. Today, the most advanced components, specifically high-end semiconductors and the rare earth minerals required to build them, are no longer treated as commodities. They are being treated as state secrets and weapons of war. The hidden mechanics here reveal a terrifying vulnerability. The modern world relies on a supply chain that is shockingly fragile. A specific type of advanced lithography machine, required to make the chips in your phone and your car, is manufactured by essentially one company in one country. If that supply line is severed, the global economy doesn't just slow down, it suffers a stroke. The psychology of institutions has shifted from open innovation to strategic denial. Major powers are now actively trying to cripple the technological advancement of their competitors. It is a game of economic suffocation. But here's the part nobody expected. It's not just about the chips, it's about the dirt. We are seeing a rush for resource nationalism. Countries that sit on top of critical minerals are rewriting the rules, banning exports, and demanding that processing happens within their borders. This is a return to 19th century power dynamics, but with 21st century stakes. The realization is dawning that you cannot build a digital future without physical control over the raw materials. The cloud is not ethereal, it is made of metal and energy, and everyone is suddenly scrambling to own the mine. This matters to you because your ability to access the future, autonomous driving, advanced healthcare, the next generation of the internet, is now a hostage to these geopolitical choke points. We are moving toward a bifurcated world where there are two distinct technological ecosystems that do not talk to each other. Your device compatibility is about to become a declaration of allegiance. However, controlling the technology is useless if you don't control the money used to pay for it. And right now, the oldest financial system in the world is facing a mutiny that the mainstream media is refusing to properly contextualize. For 80 years, the global financial system has had one sun around which all other planets orbited: the reserve currency. It allowed for seamless trade, stable pricing, and a clear hierarchy of power. But that gravity is weakening. We are watching the construction of a parallel financial system. This isn't about the erratic rise of cryptocurrency. This is about sovereign nations building a new plumbing system for the global economy to bypass the traditional gatekeepers. The intrigue here is rooted in the weaponization of finance. When sanctions became the primary tool of modern statecraft, they inadvertently created a massive incentive for targeted nations to develop alternative payment rails. The result is a fracturing of the global ledger. We are seeing bilateral trade agreements settled in local currencies, bypassing the standard reserve assets entirely. This is the financial equivalent of building a separate internet. It reduces the leverage of central institutions and insulates participating economies from external shocks, or so they hope. The nudge forward is found in the gold markets. Central banks are buying gold at a pace not seen in over half a century. Why? Because gold is the only asset that is no one else's liability. In a world of eroding trust, nations are returning to the only form of collateral that doesn't require a counterparty. This is a defensive crouch. It suggests that the architects of the global economy are hedging against a systemic fracture. They are preparing for a world where the old credit cards stop working. For the regular citizen, this shift in the financial tectonic plates manifests as fragmented liquidity. It changes how savings are valued and how global debt is serviced. If the demand for the standard reserve currency softens, the cost of borrowing at home goes up. It is a complex feedback loop where geopolitical posturing leads to higher mortgage rates in the suburbs. The global pool of capital is splitting into two distinct lakes, and swimming between them is becoming harder. But while the money and the tech are splitting, the most irreversible change is biological. The engine of globalization ran on a specific fuel that has now run dry. The fourth and final move is the only one that cannot be stopped by policy or treaty. It is simple math. The global economy was built on a foundation of expanding demographics, a constant influx of young, cheap labor to man the factories and buy the goods. That foundation has collapsed. We have hit the demographic cliff. Across the major manufacturing hubs of the world, workforces are shrinking at a rate that is historically unprecedented. The hidden mechanism here is that globalization was essentially a labor arbitrage trade. Capital flowed to where labor was abundant and cheap. But now, the world is getting old before it gets rich. There is no new reservoir of cheap labor left to tap. This forces a radical pivot toward automation, not as a cost-saving measure, but as a survival mechanism. The psychology of the market is shifting from growth at all costs to productivity at all costs. This nudges us toward a reality where inflation is structural. When labor is scarce, it commands a higher price. The days of deflationary goods exported from young countries to old countries are ending. This fundamentally alters the social contract. We are entering an age where the scarcity of humans makes the humans who are working more valuable, but also places an immense burden on the social safety nets needed to support an aging population. The impact on your life is a complete reimagining of the career arc. The retirement model of the 20th century is mathematically incompatible with the demographics of the 21st. The stability of the future will not come from cheap consumption, but from localized resilience. We are moving away from a globalized, just-in-time world to a regionalized, automated, and older world. The world isn't ending, but the version of the world you were trained for is gone. The maps are being redrawn, the currencies are being reweighted, and the supply chains are being relinked. But because while everyone is focused on the economic fracture, the real transformation is already unfolding, quietly, and in a place no one expects, where biology and code are merging to solve the scarcity crisis we just described.